What's going on, guys? It's Ty the TV Guy here, back with my Wednesday Season 2 Volume 1 review. In this video, I'm essentially going to do a little bit of a summary and then go into my likes and dislikes about the first half of Season 2. And I do intend to be mostly spoiler-free with this review here, so I wouldn't worry about spoilers. I am going to be talking through a lot of the plot, but I won't give away any of the big reveals that you get near the end of this first volume. And if you're a big fan of TV shows like me, make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel down below for more TV content. All right, so to start off this season, of course, we have Wednesday coming back to Nevermore Academy, but it looks a lot different for her, as really her family gets a lot more involved and is going to be nearby, which is evident from the very start of this season. So Pugsley, her brother, and her parents, Gomez and Morticia, are all going to be either at the school, in Pugsley's case, or in the nearby area. At least as a concept, this is actually something that I like, and something that I thought might have been missing slightly from Season 1 was kind of the presence of her parents and her family at large. And then kind of as anticipated, we get Wednesday kind of tapping back into some murky situations, going on her investigations and trying to discover these big mysteries. This time around, it's mainly about solving some murders nearby in the town, kind of being done by these crows that seem to be being commanded by somebody almost. These murders are happening simultaneously as Wednesday is also clearly being stalked. Not to mention Wednesday is having visions of her best friend, Enid, unfortunately being in a lot of trouble at some point down the line. So with the murders in the nearby area, Wednesday's stalkers, and the vision she's having about Enid, there's a lot of things going on and intertwining here that she kind of has to unravel these mysteries because of. And so I think the season has a solid base that is built, and it could be capitalized on well if done correctly. We also get to see early on that Tyler, who of course turns into that monster later in Season 1, as we know, was Wednesday's love interest for much of the season. We now know that he is kind of being held in this solitary confinement room where he shouldn't be able to escape. And so that's kind of where all the characters are, and the very general and broad summary of the storylines for this season. As far as the specifics, it does kind of feel like it's all over the place. There's so much happening. I feel like Season 1 was kind of focused in this way, and where, we were following Wednesday, and it was kind of Wednesday's show all around. And it still is that way. She's still the main character by far. Obviously, the show is named after her. But it does feel like there's a lot more moving parts, for better or for worse. And it does feel like they're trying to up the scale of the show, and that this was intentional, not really a result of just kind of getting lost in the story. And so like I said at the beginning of this video, I'm kind of going to do some of my pros and cons here. I'm going to try to, as always, start out with the positives and the things that I do like. I still really like Jenna Ortega's performance as Wednesday. I think it's still the highlight of the show, as I thought in Season 1. I think she feels like this character. She brings it to life, makes it seem real. And so I love the performance for Wednesday, and generally am interested in the shenanigans she gets involved in. Though I don't think she's quite as well written and has like as good of witty and dark lines and humor as she did in Season 1. Of course, that's still her personality, and they're still putting that in there. I don't think it's executed quite as well from a writing standpoint, but I still generally enjoy that aspect of the character. I also, for the most part, like the dynamic between Morticia and her daughter Wednesday. I think that, them kind of butting heads only feels natural in this, and it's nice to see a member of the family trying to look out for Wednesday like her mother does, despite Wednesday always fervently chasing what she wants and what she feels she needs to do. Her mother tries to stand in the way, with this book that is around of these spells, and is concerned about Wednesday's well-being because of these visions she's having. I will also say that I don't mind the new principal or head of the school. I don't know if he's technically deemed a principal, but the guy in charge now, I also kind of find to be interesting. Clearly, there's something a little deeper and suspicious going on with him as well, and so I think that adds a nice element to the show, and the mystery outside of Wednesday kind of expands to maybe some corrupt things going on at the top of the school. But I'm going to be honest, guys, this is where my review is going to turn negative, and there's probably going to be more to talk about here than with the positives, for me at least. So I know that early on I was kind of complimentary of the fact that Wednesday's family is more involved, and I, for the most part, like the dynamic between her and her mother, as I mentioned, but I think the father, Gomez, has very little to do. I do find his humor to actually be good comic relief and funny, kind of mostly in relation to the mother and him wanting to, have some romantic time with her. Usually his lines are pretty funny, I think, but as far as like plot wise, he basically is pointless, I think. And then Pugsley, kind of the same thing. I mean, they're trying not to make him pointless, right? I mean, they're trying to give him things to do with this zombie storyline, which I'll go further into. And, he's kind of the somewhat friend and roommate of Eugene now. And I think Pugsley has dragged Eugene lower. I thought Eugene was a nice, quirky character in Season 1 that helped out Wednesday in the mission that we actually cared about in Season 1. In Season 2, he's connected to this side zombie story, like I said, and I just don't think Eugene has been that enjoyable because there's not much on the plate for him. And I'm sure there's something deeper to this zombie that is, I guess, trying to, like, eat enough brains to become, self-sufficient again and, like, human again almost. But as of right now, it just doesn't really intrigue to me. And, I'm a fan of horror. I really like creepy stuff and horror that's well done, but I just don't like the way they're eating the brains here. It's just kind of a turnoff to me. I don't know. And just the zombie storyline in general felt rushed into. Pugsley just goes on this little adventure, brings him back, has him on this little chain that, of course, he's going to break free from. And then he gets to that prison, somehow gets locked up again by the prison or mental institution, whatever that place is. And then he just breaks free because he's on this janky little chain once again. So I don't know. I feel like this zombie escaping is just kind of falling into exactly the trope you would expect it to. Rushed and predictable is kind of how I feel about a lot of the many things that are going on here in this first volume. The first episode felt less like trying to get us acclimated again and more like just a speed run to action, which I don't really like. I like story building. I like detailed writing that gives motivations and gives us some context and background as to why the things that are happening are occurring or why people are motivated to act a certain way. I just feel like every character from Tyler to Enid to even beyond the characters, the different subplots of this, there's not much build up as to, like I said, just kind of the motivations or the context to these situations is just kind of like, this is happening, here's a little bit of details about it, and then we're just going to jump into the action, and Wednesday's going to start having visions and getting into trouble, and then these other people are going to... It just feels a bit messy and all over the place to me. I know that they're probably trying to, expand intentionally, as I mentioned earlier, into different subplots and have it, not just be Wednesday that's doing everything and solving all the mysteries. They didn't do it in a very thoughtful and effectively sequential manner. I also got to talk about Enid, who, aside from Wednesday, which it's hard to think Wednesday's not the best character, but in Season 1, aside from Wednesday, Enid was my favorite character, and she's just had really nothing to do in Season 2 here thus far. I realized that I think a lot of the reason her and Wednesday have been distant and not interacting all that much is because Wednesday's trying to hide the vision of Enid being in trouble from Enid because she thinks Enid would freak out, and she just kind of wants to take care of it before Enid would have to find out that potential reality. So I get that might be the reason, but nevertheless, one of my favorite things about the show in Season 1 was their interactions, was their opposite personalities kind of bringing something different out of Wednesday, and you're just not really seeing as much of that here in Season 2. Not to mention, when we sparingly get Enid on screen, it's with this ridiculously predictable love triangle of the past kind of nerdy, safe boyfriend with the new, more attractive one that seems a bit cooler and fits in with her better. It's just like exactly what you would think, and it's just like, okay, what can we do for Enid for the first half of this season since we can't have her around Wednesday as much that'll be safe, and we can kind of just move on to the rest of the story after a couple flashes of scenes with her making out with a boy. So I hate to be harsh, but that's just kind of how I feel about it, and I'm disappointed that Enid isn't more involved and crucial to the story, or at least to Wednesday's character as she felt in Season 1. I realize that the rebuttal to this could be she is crucial to Wednesday's character. Wednesday's efforts in this season are largely to protect Enid because of the vision she had, and I realize that, but on screen it just doesn't feel that way thus far. And when I would describe why I enjoyed Season 1 of Wednesday pretty decently, I'll admit I wasn't a super fan, so I already didn't expect this Season 2 to be my absolute favorite thing ever necessarily, but I did think Season 1 was solid, and I think that was just because it felt like we got to understand Wednesday, but then we, received details throughout the season that for her character and for the plot subverted our expectations or did something we didn't see coming. Obviously, the reveal of Tyler in Season 1 was super exciting, for the storyline and a good twist. And of that teacher, I forget her name, I think Mrs. Thornhill. That was good as well. Obviously, those two characters have been less involved and, in my opinion, much less interesting in this season, both because of just the state of where they're at and because there's a lot of other things going on, so there's just less screen time for everybody. And I thought the twists related to them were some of the best things for side characters going on in season 1, so without that, there's not as much good things going on. Plus, Enid being used more sparingly has also contributed to my negative feelings of the characters and the plot around Wednesday. And to be honest, even with Wednesday herself, I feel like is less interesting and compelling than she was in season 1. I don't understand as much why she's getting into what she's getting into. Like the first scene that we get into this season, I just don't really understand. I mean, it's just like her nature, I guess, to want to understand these murders, but it all feels a bit scattered, a bit thrown together, and like it has less intentionality and thoughtfulness than season 1. I just feel like in season 1, there was more of a special feeling. You know, there was a wide variety of teens that kind of made it this colorful show, and it made it more challenging for Wednesday to navigate and see how she was going to bounce off these different types of personalities and react, of course, given how dark and deadly her personality is. And of course here I'm trying to be like analytical, you know, looking at the writing, looking at the depth or lack thereof of these characters and their motivations in this season. But even just on a base level, if I weren't to, you know, resort to my natural, you know, my nature, which is to analyze things real deeply, even just on base level, this season just kind of bores me. I don't care as much about the mysteries or the storyline like I did and grew to in season 1. And once again, I know we're only halfway through this. Maybe that'll happen at some point, but right now I just don't care all that much. And, you know, some of the reveals in the last episode of this first volume were okay, but once again, they were predictable. I knew that one of the things that happened, which I'm sure if you haven't seen it yet, you can predict is going to happen. It's just inevitable. But that's just how I feel right now. Characters like Xavier, Eugene, Mrs. Thornhill, Tyler, like I've talked about those couple of characters, all of them, I feel like, that were in season 1 and were interesting, have all either gotten worse or, in Xavier's case, aren't even in the show in season 2. I also think the whole siren thing with Bianca is being super abused as a plot device. Just wanted to mention that too, because just any situation, she just uses that and it solves everything. This first volume of season 2 just frustrated me, and I've never been less interested in the show than I am now, to be honest with you, but I still will watch volume 2, and if you liked this volume 1, I respect it. There was some entertainment value. Like I mentioned, I thought the dynamic between her and her mother was good. I thought that still some of the mystery solving and the stalker stuff was at least thrilling in the sense that you wanted to know who it was. And of course, you know, we kind of get that reveal at some point here. But overall, I just think there's a lot of plot holes and shortcomings in the development of the plot for this season that kind of just turned me off of it, but I still will give volume 2 a try when the time comes. I also forgot to mention that Uncle Fester's return did increase my enjoyment here a bit. He's funny, and you know, his presence feels necessary, unlike a lot of these characters, so I want to give credit where credit's due there. I think Wednesday can continue to be entertaining and interesting, as always, played by Jenna Ortega. Still really love that performance individually, but outside of that, I just think the show's kind of a mess and losing its footing in terms of the direction it wants to go. But hey, some people on the internet are really liking it. You know, I looked around before I made this video to try to get the general sense. There are some people liking it. Of course, like me, there's several people airing their concerns as well. But season 2 thus far actually has a better score on Rotten Tomatoes, so I thought that was interesting. Don't see how you could really think that, but I respect the opinion of the public and of these critics who apparently think it's better than season 1 so far. But I'm going to end it there, guys. Let me know what you guys think of season 2 thus far, and if you think so far it's on pace to be better than season 1. Personally, I just think, like I've run through several times now, I think it's just less focused, has a worse build-up, and the side characters around Wednesday are less interesting and don't serve her as well either. And I'm just not too fascinated with the plot right now, and we're a lot of predictable things, I think. But I want to hear from you. Tell me how you feel. Once again, subscribe to my channel for more TV content, and I hope I like the second volume better. Not trying to be a hater, guys, just giving you my honest feelings on it. But that's it. This is Ty the TV Guy, and I'll see you in the next one.